Week 1 of Dana White's Contender Series 2023 is here. I'm going to give you a full card prediction and breakdown of all these fights, the 5 fights on this card. It is going to be, I think, a pretty entertaining card. Last year, I guess there was a bunch of decisions. Joe Pyfer got the only finish on that card, I believe, off the top of my head, where that whole B. Joe Pyfer thing happened. So hopefully we don't get one of those where it's a little bit more boring. But I think a lot of these guys are definitely going to be able to put on an entertaining fight. And I think this fight is actually going to be super entertaining as well. Starting off with Kevin Borjas versus Victor Diaz. And Kevin Borjas, I believe, lost his only loss on his career against Renzo Mendez. Renzo Mendez was just in a matchup against Bogdan. Grad, I think is what his name is, on the co-main event of this actual card. So that's pretty interesting. I guess it's a small little world there. But for Kevin Borjas, there isn't much tape on him. When researching this fight, I think I could only find his fight against Joseph Vieira, which was, I think it was like a body shot TKO or something, where he just dropped him there and finished him on the ground. I believe it was like what was the name of his company here? Inca FC 34. I could find like clips of that. Like there's on YouTube, I think there's like a 1-minute clip of like a bunch of edited moments. And I went to his Facebook page where it was 4 minutes, but it was still cut up. So there isn't too much you can find on Kevin Borjas. I couldn't find his last fight really. So that's a little bit annoying, but in all the fights that I have seen, he's been really, really crisp on the feet. I've noticed that like he's really crisp on the feet, does throw some wild stuff every now and again. He'll throw a knee, he'll throw like a spinning back kick. He'll throw like a lot of stuff, but I notice he chooses it really, really well. He does have some really good power in his hands. I think in this Joseph Vieira fight, Vieira looked for a lot of takedowns. He's able to sprawl a lot of them and then reverse position and end up on top a lot of the times. And Victor Diaz, a guy who there is quite a bit of tape on, fought in Titan FC, a very, very dominant wrestler and grappler. He's 33 years of age, so he is going to be older. He's going to be much more experienced. I'm not too sure what Kevin Borjas' age is off the top of my head, but I don't know. I'm pretty 50-50 on this matchup. A lot of people are taking Victor Diaz, and I think I'm just going to go with Kevin Borjas. I think he's really, really clean on the feet. He has a lot of power in his hands, and from what I saw, he definitely improved his takedown defense from his last, I guess, a loss against Renzo Mendez. Against Renzo Mendez, he actually almost finished him at the beginning of that fight before getting submitted due to a rear naked choke by like the fence later on that round. So, I mean, even in that fight, it looked like he was going to be able to get the finish. He landed a really crisp body shot. I think it was on Joseph Vieira. It might have been Tiao Calixito, but I couldn't find that. Well, I don't think I could even find that fight. So, yeah, the body shot that he landed on there was a pretty crisp combo that he landed. Again, plus 300 underdog. A lot of underdogs do hit on the Contender Series. You saw, Flowers against Gogoladze last year off the top of my head. Salvador versus Ross. I think Salvador was a pretty big underdog who I did take, and those guys hit. So Contender Series does have a lot of underdogs that do hit on these cards, which makes betting a little bit annoying, but I guess if you can kind of find like the right bets to make, it could be pretty helpful. But I am going to go with Borjas here. I think although there isn't much tape on him, which is why I think a lot of people are going with Diaz, and Diaz is a very dominant wrestler and grappler, I think Borjas can hit him early, maybe land some really clean shots, and then maybe defend like a very sloppy takedown from Diaz, sprawl it out, and finish him up on the ground. If not, just hold top position. That's what I think can happen here. Borjas can definitely get caught by him on his own, but Diaz, honestly, I haven't seen too much from him on the feet. Like he throws a lot of leg kicks, which are decent, but then he doesn't really have much to his game other than that. And I feel like he's very open against a guy like Kevin Borjas to where he can get caught and finished up on the ground. So I am going to go with Borjas in this matchup, possibly by finish. I think if it is going to go to a decision, it'll probably be by Diaz, but I think this matchup is probably going to be super entertaining. I hope so, at least, but I am going to go with Borjas here. He's going to be a super big underdog. I don't like that for my first pick. It's going to be a super big underdog, but we'll see how this one goes. I don't recommend betting on this fight at all, but do as you please. Maybe finish inside the distance might actually be a good bet here, because I think either one of these guys could definitely get a finish in this matchup. So let's move on. Up the card, we have Payton Talbott versus Junior Cortez, who I believe is the brother of Tracy Cortez, and he was originally on the Contender Series against C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez, lost to him on the Contender Series, and Junior Cortez originally had like a more of a wrestling style. He's kind of developed more into a striking I don't want to say base because he still has that wrestling base, and he does train at Fight Ready, which is a really good gym to have, especially for wrestling. But he still has that base in wrestling. He's working on the feet and those skills. But Payton Talbott, I know, I watched Artem today. He compared him to Sean O'Malley, and that's actually pretty true there. Like, his fighting style is very weirdly similar to Sean O'Malley's. Like, the little feints that he does on the feet that Sean O'Malley does, holds a good distance. The thing that I did not like in Talbott's last fight, though, is that he did not move his head at all against Christian Ribas, and that was really, really annoying to see. Like, or it was either Christian Ribas or Anthony Jimenez. I think it was I think it was Christian Ribas. And in that last fight, he was not moving his head at all, and he was being very hittable. Early on that fight, he was getting hit quite a bit as well, and he was not looking good early on, but he started to pick up the pace a little bit more. He was kind of just walking him down, like taking some of the shots and landing back, and when he does get taken down, he's able to work his way up, and that's why I think I am going to go with Talbott in this matchup. I think if Cortez does take him down, I think Talbott could definitely work his way back up, and I think he's going to be better on the feet. Cortez, I think, went for more of a clinch game in his matchup against Christian Rodriguez, and that didn't really work. He couldn't really get the takedown on him. And I think Talbott can actually do really well on the feet here, use some of the range there, land some really good shots. He doesn't have, like, the speed of O'Malley, and I will even say, like, some of his shots, he is a younger guy, so he can definitely develop. I'm just saying for right now. He doesn't have the speed of O'Malley. His shots, I won't say have as much power as O'Malley's does, but he can definitely develop that with a little bit better technique. But he kind of just walks down some of these shots, which could be very dangerous against a guy like Cortez, who could probably hurt him very badly in this matchup. But I think Talbott's just going to land the better shots here. Maybe he does end up getting a finish. I could see this one going to the decision, though. But he does have some really good pop in his shots. A lot of Tapology is taking Talbott in this matchup. 84% here, 73% by Caio. I don't mind that here, but maybe a money line pick might actually be better. Minus 155. I like the money line from that matchup. That's probably what I'll go with, because I like a little parlay for Contender Series, because the odds are really nice on them. Especially, you can get a really nice underdog on one of these cards. So up the card, we had Caio Machado versus Kevin Szaflarski is how I want to say that name. For this matchup, heavyweight matchup, Machado is very, very good with the jiu-jitsu. He hasn't fought the best of opponents. He's very, very, I don't even know what to even call it. He's a very weird fighter. His technique isn't really there compared to a Szaflarski. I can't say that last name without screwing it up, but we'll try to make it through this one. But he hasn't fought the best of opponents. I think even his opponents that he has fought, this dude had gray hair when he was fighting him, 44 years of age, old guys, 11 and 15, 12 and 17, good, he got a win, but 56 years old, believe that. He fought this dude when he was 55, 54 years old. That's insane to me. Chris Larson, 5-1, so a decent win there, but 36 years of age, so he's fighting older guys. He is 29 years of age, so he can improve, but I just don't like the wins he does have. But he does tire out quite a bit, and although he does have some very good wrestling, he does go for some trips and looked for a couple arm bars. I think he got the arm bar finish over Edson Lopez. I guess if Kevin Szaflarski is able to get out of the way of those, of a very heavy takedown, a very pressure heavy Machado in the first round, I think he can probably win this fight relatively easily. Szaflarski definitely has better technique than him. I think he has even better wins than Machado does. So beat a 7-1 guy. Beat it by majority decision, of course. 6-1 guy, and then it does get kind of rough down there. But I don't know. I think he's going up against better opponents. His technique looks a little bit better. I'm gonna take Szaflarski. I guess this is a little bit of a closer matchup. You can kind of see in the odds, but I'm gonna take him in this one. 79% picked by Tapology, 73% by Caio. I can definitely see that after Machado does tire out a little bit more after that first round, because I think he's gonna go very pressure heavy and try to maybe go for a finish, try and get a takedown early and get a sub. But I think Szaflarski can weather that storm, figure it out towards the end of that first round, maybe get the finish towards the end of that first round with the very pressure-heavy Machado just running into some punches. Or he can, in the second or third round, maybe end up finishing Machado later on. So I am going to go with Szaflarski, probably by TKO in this matchup. I do agree with Tapology. A pretty relatively close fight shown in the odds. Again, maybe a decent parlay piece here, but Machado, you never really know. I mean, he could get a finish in this matchup early on. So we'll see how this one goes. Up the card, we have Tom Nolan versus Bogdan Grad, and this one's going to be a super interesting matchup. I think it's going to be pretty 50-50 with Tapology. It is 47-53. But this one's a pretty close matchup. Bogdan Grad is actually pretty skilled, shorter, stockier dude compared to a Tom Nolan who's 6'3", and Bogdan Grad's 5'9", so keep that in mind at lightweight as well. So he has looked pretty impressive in his matchups. Won over a decision against Renzo Mendez, beat Tador Dermenji by a spinning heel kick. In that matchup, he was getting pieced up quite a bit at certain points, especially early on in that fight. So he is relatively open on the feet, and I think that's going to be very important in this matchup. And then Christian Mack, that win, he won by standing guillotine in the second round. Tom Nolan, 6'3", keeps a pretty high pace on the feet, does defend the takedowns pretty well. So Bogdan Grad does try to shoot takedowns on him. I think he can kind of defend him a little bit because he did show that. I think in his fight against Aiden Aguilera, he did defend the takedowns pretty early. He landed like a ground and knee, which is not good. Hopefully he doesn't do that in this matchup, but keeps a pretty high pace on the feet. Has some really good hands, a lot of power in his hands. The technique's not perfect, but Bogdan Grad, who is a little bit more patient when he fights, like I guess he's patient and then he unloads. For Tom Nolan, he kind of just keeps the pace up, lands some really good shots. He hasn't fought the as skilled opponents as a Bogdan Grad. He did win over Adam Cook, who was 7-1, now 7-2, of course. But I think Tom Nolan can get this one done. Maybe he gets this one done by finish. I think Bogdan Grad does tire out over time in these matchups. And maybe he does get a finish later in this fight. Maybe he goes to a decision. I can definitely see it going to a decision, but he's definitely going to be the taller guy here. I don't think Grad's going to be able to land like a spinning heel kick. He doesn't really go for it too much. I guess a few moments in some of his fights, he does kind of get a little bit too comfortable doing that quite a bit. So I think Tom Nolan can put the pressure on him, land some really good shots. Maybe he does end up getting the finish later on, but I'm not too confident in it. I think like everything's pretty 50-50 in this match. 47% for Nolan, 53% for Grad, 50% for KO, 61% for KO for each of them. So a lot of people are kind of my thought process here. I am going to go Tom Nolan, though. I think he can keep a higher pace than Bogdan Grad. Bogdan Grad's just a little bit too patient for me. I think this gets scrappy. I trust Nolan a little bit more, especially with the height advantage here. I think he can do pretty well. So I am going to go with Tom Nolan. Maybe a late round finish by TKO. If not, I'm pretty comfortable with the decision here. So I am going to go with Tom Nolan in this one. Up the card, we have Cesar Almeida versus Lucas Fernando. I am going to go with Lucas Fernando in this one. Cesar Almeida, former kickboxer, went to 3 decisions against Alex Pereira, 1-2 against him in their second fight. He did end up winning in 2013. I guess they had the trilogy fight in 2015. Has had a couple MMA bouts. Beat Thiago Araujo, I think is how you say that, in round 1, won by KO. Beat Vitor Costa, who I think is actually doing pretty decent now, 5-1 himself, most recently in 2023 as well. So Dana Souza did beat him 5-28 when he did beat him 6-31. So take that one with a grain of salt. So he hasn't fought the best guys in MMA. Lucas Fernando, on the other hand, fights out of LFA, 9-1. The last fight was a win over Janzi Silva in a 5-round fight, of course. So he got a body shot KO there in round 4. Beat Fabio Aguilar, I think is how you say his name. But I think Fernando can definitely use his grappling here to out-wrestle Almeida. I think if this does stay on the feet, I think Almeida could definitely KO Lucas Fernando. And I think that's kind of the worry here. But for Fernando, I think he can end up just taking down Almeida. You just don't know too much, or you're at least assuming that because he's such a, he's been a kickboxer for so long that he's just going to be able to get taken down. And I think Lucas Fernando does have, again, good grappling. I think he can end up submitting Cesar Almeida in the first round. And Almeida, 35 years of age, so he isn't a younger guy either. Fernando will have 3 inches on him. So I think I just have to go with Fernando in this matchup. But I think Almeida could definitely win this one by KO. The odds are -270 for Fernando. Might not even be that bad. I think if you go like a submission or a finish, I'm sure it'll be less than that. So I think Almeida by KO maybe a good pick here if you're kind of just trying to go for the underdog and you want to get more value out of it. But Fernando, I think he wins this one probably by submission. People are saying by KO. I think that's very interesting. I think Almeida probably KOs him on the feet, but Fernando, I mean, Fernando can be hittable sometimes. I don't know if he wins by KO. I think submission on the ground is probably the way to go after taking him down. Maybe they think like TKO on the ground. He just pins him down and finishes him there. Maybe that's what Tapology is thinking, but I think submission is much more likely on the ground here. 86% by Tapology. I'm going to go with Lucas Fernando in this matchup. We'll see what happens, though. I think Almeida could definitely have a really good chance at KOing Fernando on the feet. So this is what I have for this week of Dana White's Contender Series. I think there's about a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, I think there's like 12 weeks or something. Next week actually looks really good. So I'm super excited for these upcoming bouts. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let me know who you guys think wins in these matchups down below, and I'll see you guys next time.